Of late, I have been talking to you about ATLAH is a controlling factor regarding the well-being of the Hamite people. Now, they refer to themselves as black or colored African-American. They don't use colored anymore. But ATLAH is a controlling factor, not politicians, not black or Hamite, if you will, elected officials, movie stars, basketball players, or sports athletes. So ATLAH is controlling, and until the Hamite people submit themselves to ATLAH, you're going to see a continuation of God's curse upon them. Now, they're not going to like that, but I want to ask you, those of you who have at least a sense of understanding about this process, please pray with me. I want to show you, I've been recently showing you men in Harlem sleeping on the streets. I want to show you one other video of a man also on 125th Street, just 2 blocks from where I'm at right now, just the other day, to show you the curse and the depravity, and that God's not pleased with Hamite or black or African-American people for the position they've taken regarding the worship of Barack Hussein Obama or their rejection of ATLAH and the ministry that God's given unto us. So I want to show you this, and I'll be back with more. Mr. Engineer, please roll that clip.
They were bugging out on 125th. He owns something.
Now, this was taken just a few days ago on 125th Street, just a block or so away from the Apollo Theater, a couple of blocks from where I'm now seated, and a block or so from where the gentrifiers, the gangsters, the banksters, the perverts, the haters have all come up here, and they put up the Marriott Hotel, which is yet to open up for business. And this is just symptomatic of what's happening with Hamite men and women. Now, this is one man who's obviously, as you can see, in a very desperate state. But I have to tell you something. The Hamite men and women who have jobs, good jobs, working for the city or the state, or working in some private business, or working as Don Lemon or Eddie Glaude, or working on these major television networks, are in the same position. They're spiritually, they are at the same position. And God is saying, and I want you to hear me, and those of you who understand, there's never been anything like this in the history of humanity. You have never seen anything like that in broad daylight on one of the world's major thoroughfares and the world's largest, most powerful city, New York City. You've never seen anything like that before. It's going to get worse until the Hamite people submit themselves to the prophecy and vision of ATLAH, and most poignantly, denounce Barack Hussein Obama as an imposter, as one who has robbed them of their dignity, robbed them of the blessings of God, and left them bereft. Until they're willing to do that, including these men and others. And I want to go back to some of the photos of men on the street that we've shown you before, because you've never seen in the history of the world. In the history of the world, there has never been the level of men as low, sleeping on the sidewalk with nowhere to go. These men don't own a roll of toilet paper, probably haven't purchased a roll of toilet paper. Every time they use toilet paper, it's somebody else's toilet paper to purchase them for. They don't own any spoons or forks. They live on the streets. And this coming summer of 2022, you're going to see massive number of people dead in the streets. And they're all Hamite men, not Latinos, but Hamite men who have refused ATLAH, have refused the Lord's servant, James David Manning, and have allowed themselves to be hoodwinked by these pinch-nosed, sellout, wannabe white politicians who want to talk white, who want to live white, want to live in white neighborhoods, and also have robbed and stolen from them their dignity. Now, here's another man right here, almost in the same state. This is also on 125th Street. I mean, I'm not making this up. Listen, this is another man. He's not undressed like the other man we saw just a moment ago, but watch him for just a moment. Watch this. Watch this. Look at that. Look at him. He's on the street. He's got his clothes on. He's got a beggar's cup in his hand. This is on 125th Street in modern-day New York City. This is what's going on. Now watch this. These are two men across the street from our church on drugs, on heroin. You've never seen depravity like this. And God wants everybody to know that this is since Obama. You would think with the advent of Obama, a so-called black president, that you would never see black men at this level. You would never, but the point of it is that you had never seen anything like this. And God is saying that Hamites need to denounce Obama as an imposter, all this worship of blackness, Black Lives Matter, this satanic, if you will, organization that need to be denounced, and people need to accept ATLAH. And until you do, the depravity is only going to get worse. And just because the Pensionados Negro, the Lori Lightfoots of the world, the Muriel Bowsers of the world, the Eric Adams of the world, the Sylvester, whoever it is down there in Houston, mayor, and the mayor of Atlanta, all these so-called, and these congresspersons, these so-called black politicians, now they're Hamites, they're in the same situation. They're the ones, listen, Obama did not make life better for black people, is what I'm trying to say to you. And God has sent me here. And by the way, yesterday I spoke about some things that were quietly kept about Hamite people, and they call themselves black African American, have the most diverse levels of color of any persons or group of people on planet Earth. You can find so-called black people, African American, or colored, and they are colored, from very high yellow to teas and tan to dark mahogany. There's no other people on the planet as diverse. Most pale white people, I call them pale faces, the Indians call them. Most so-called white people, now they're not white, they're Japheth, have a consistent color. They may vary a little bit here and there, then they try to get a tan to look a little bit darker, but most of them are pretty much the same in the color range. Same thing with Chinese or Japanese or Latin Americans, Hispanics. They're same within the same. You find occasionally some are a little bit darker than others, but you find that, but Hamite people, black people, it is like they are scattered all over the place, which brings them to the point of why they hate being black. One of the things that propels the Pensionados Negro to get the good jobs, the television jobs, the news anchors, the college professor jobs, is because they want to be white. They want to be white. See, you couldn't get me to work at Harvard I'm going to say stuff that these Japheth white people ain't going to stand for. Jewish people ain't going to stand for me saying, they ain't going to have me teaching at Harvard or have me on CNN, because they ain't going to stand for what I'm going to say, because I don't want to be white. I don't want to be them. I don't want to lick a kiss up to them. I'm not a Pensionados. I'm not a house Negro. I'm not a brown. So they ain't coming nowhere near me. But the ones they let into their venues, the Jewish and Japheth people, into their universities, onto their television screens, and into their major venues, they let them in there because these Negroes want to be white, and they'll never say anything to upset the man. They'll never say anything to upset the man, the Jewish man. They kiss up to these people like you won't believe. They kiss up to these. You think when you look at people like Van Jones and Cornel West and including Al Sharpton, You see, these people kiss these white people so much, you think you're at a drive-in movies in the 1950s where you see more kissing in the cars than you do on the screen. No, these are some butt kissing. And they ain't gonna never say nothing to make the man, they ain't gonna never say nothing against the man. But see, not me, James A. Manning, they ain't gonna have me, no, sir, they ain't gonna have the kind of talk I talk. But what I want to say to you is that these people are the poison, and they're poisoning the men you see on the street. Now, let me bring you to Pharaoh Eric Adams. I've been telling you, Eric Adams, the newly elected mayor of New York City, I've called him Pharaoh because God has sent a word that he needs to come to the ATLAH Church, sit down in the sanctuary of the ATLAH Church, and discuss with me about the crime that's running off the chain here in New York City. And I've got a couple of articles here of just some crimes that have happened recently. We know about the two police officers that was killed not long ago, Jason Alvarez and Jason Rivera and Wilbert Mora, two police officers. God forbid, I am for the police. I am pro-police all the way. But Eric Adams needs to come to see me about the Joseph Project that God has orchestrated and outlined to bring men from prison who've gotten their lives together back to the streets of Harlem, Bed-Stuy, and Fort Greene, and South Jamaica and South Bronx to be able to stop this massive crime wave, especially of young people. You know, a young boy was shot, a 14-year-old was shot the other day. A teen was shot. Where's the article? A teen was shot on Harlem Street, right on 125th Street, right where you saw that man a few moments ago. A 14-year-old boy was shot in the ankle while walking down West 125th Street, right where you saw the other event of the man out there with no clothes on, just jumping up and down in the street. And after the attack, the boy fled underground to a subway station before being taken to a nearby hospital for treatment. And according to police sources, the teen, only 14-year-olds, was not cooperating. In other words, he knows who shot him. And no arrests have been made so far. So, and beyond that, there is the, of course, here's another. Two people were stabbed inside the New York City Museum of Modern Art. Two people stabbed in the Museum of Modern Art. I mean, stabbers go there. Two women were stabbed inside the Museum of Modern Art on Saturday, that's just past Saturday, causing dozens of people to be evacuated from the New York City Museum. According to the New York City Police Department, the incident occurred shortly after 4 p.m., according to WCBS television. The two victims were taken to Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan. Their injuries were not considered to be life-threatening, police said. Police did not say where the women were stabbed or what prompted the attack. All right, this is just the other day. Another New York police, let's see. Okay, I think we've got a joint statement as well because there have been 5 people that have been shot by this alleged person who is killing homeless people here in New York and in Washington, D.C. And there was a joint statement issued by Mayor Muriel Browser of Washington, D.C., and Pharaoh Eric Adams. And it reads, tonight, Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Browser, New York City Mayor Pharaoh Eric Adams spoke about ongoing investigations by the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia and the New York Police Department into an individual who is suspect in targeting and shooting men experiencing homelessness in Washington, D.C. and New York City. But this doesn't make any sense to me. Let me read the rest of it. This weekend, at least 2 men were shot in New York City, and at least one of these men succumbed to his injuries. The suspect in both cities is believed to be the same individual. Following their conversation, Mayor Browser and Mayor Pharaoh Eric Adams released the following statement. Our communities in D.C. and New York are heartbroken and disturbed by the heinous crimes in which an individual has been targeting some of the most vulnerable residents. The two of us spoke about how our team can coordinate and help one another. And we are calling for everyone in our cities to look at the images of the suspect and report any information, however small that may be useful. The work to get this individual off our streets before he hurts or murders another individual is urgent. The rise in gun violence has shaken all of us, and it is particularly horrible to know that someone is out there deliberately doing harm to already vulnerable persons or people. That was Mayor Eric Adams and Mayor Browser from Washington, D.C. So here's the deal. I saw a report this morning that was issued on yesterday. I saw a report this morning that they've arrested a suspect in Washington, D.C. The thing that bothers me about this is that why would, and by the way, he's a Hamite, by the way, killing Hamites. Why would someone, a Hamite, lives in Washington, D.C., or lives in New York City, I don't know which, shoot and kill homeless people on the streets of New York, and then go and shoot and kill homeless people on the streets of Washington, D.C.? Why not Philadelphia? But, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I've never heard of anything like that. You know, a commuting killer who commutes from D.C. to, what does it take, the Amtrak? This is ridiculous. And they arrested some guy. The police rolled up on a guy down there in Washington, D.C. last night near a service station, threw that boy to the ground so hard, I mean, it caused a little earthquake there in northwest Washington. They say he's a suspect. I don't know. But, you never heard of anything like this. You never heard of the kind of crimes and the violence and teenagers that are being shot, women that are being stabbed, women that are being raped in public daylight. I mean, raped on a subway platform, stabbed on a subway platform. Now, the other thing is that I think what's going to be disturbing news is that the rebooted New York anti-gun units returned to the streets. The revamped anti-gun New York Police Department units took to the streets Monday with a top-level promise they wouldn't repeat discriminatory past mistakes that scuttled their predecessors. New York Police Department Commissioner Ketchen Sewell last week announced new neighborhood safety teams will be deployed in 25 police commands plagued by gun violence. Eventually, they were in 30 precincts, she said. These teams are there for gun violence. They are there for criminal activity, but they look police officers, she said. In other words, we have this stop and frisk event going back until Bill de Blasio ended that. But here's the deal. This is going to, and I'm pro-police. Don't anybody misunderstand me. I'm pro-police. But putting these units back on the street again and trying to color them a little bit differently and a different label, and somehow or another they're not going to be as controversial as the stop and frisk police officers going back several years ago is folly. It's just ridiculous. And it's going to have a lot of young people, especially Hamites, being stopped. And it's going to cause a lot of confrontations on the streets of New York. It's going to be hell in New York City. And the answer to this, of course, is the Joseph Project. And I've given an announcement, and I don't think he's coming, that Pharaoh, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, will come and talk to me. And we can orchestrate a plan that would bring men who are ex-convicts, who've been sentenced to, long prison sentences, but they've really gotten their lives together in prison, and they will never crack an egg or bust a grape again, or never throw a brick at a jailhouse again. They're ready to get out on the streets to deal with these men and women out there committing all these crimes. They can go out there as having spent 7 years of their life in prison to tell their young brother, don't do what your big brother did. Listen, man, don't do what I did. And as you know, I'm 44 years out of prison. That's it, Pastor Man. My God, you were in the ancient days. Yeah. I was released in 1978. So 78. That's 44 years I've been released. This June will be 44 years I've been out of prison. And over the years, I've established 3 schools and graduated more than 500 students from a grade school and a high school, and established a church here in the Harlem community, a breakfast program feeding poor people here in Harlem, over 1 million meals served, and, established a global ministry. We got members of our church all over the world. You know, and but I was once a bad boy. I was once out there like these young boys out there on the street now. And but there are men in prison right now, Pharaoh Eric Adams, there are men in prison right now who are as good and committed and true blue as I am, but they're languishing up there in Dannemora, in Attica, and Greenhaven, Comstock, and Auburn, and other places where they need to be released and brought to the streets. Because it's going to be very difficult for the police. You know, Hamite people just got a bad taste in their mouth for police. Now, I don't, you know, and then this bad taste that Hamite people have in their mouth for police was set on rocket fuel when these people from Black Lives Matter and other congressperson politicians came up with the slogan, defund the police. That poured fuel on the fire that Hamite people have in terms of their angst against the police. So you're going to see police out there on the street now, but you're going to see these Hamite people who are crazy. And we started this by saying that this is the curse of God. You see these men sleeping on the street? All they have to do is come to the Outlaw World Missionary Church just as they are. All they have to do is come to the Outlaw World Missionary Church. Let me teach them. I got to tell them the truth. Got to tell them how wretched they've been. Tell them they never built anything, never done anything, that they're racist as all outdoors, but God loves them and God is ready to call them into a powerful position. But not before I'm telling them, stop blaming white folk, stop talking about how awful slavery was, and get your life together under the power of the prophecy that Almighty God. That's what they need to hear. They need to be told flat out, straight up. You worship that long-legged Mac Daddy Obama because you're racist. You're full of race hatred. You worship that man, and he tricked you. He didn't do a thing for you. Didn't even look your way. Left black folk in a worse position now than they were before the long-legged Mac Daddy ever came, running on hope and change and acting. You know, one thing about Obama that bothered me is that his body language looked more like a woman than it was a man. That turned me off right away, that his body language, he didn't act like a man, didn't walk like a man, and never had a woman accuse him of trying to get some. You know, I stopped and said, well, what did it say? No, you got to, give me Wesley Snipes. Don't give me no Obama. Give me Wesley Snipes. But we got to denounce that. We got to confess before God and the rest of humanity that black people worship blackness before they worship Jesus. Black people worship blackness before they eat their food. Black people say a black prayer before they eat their white rice. Black people are racist, and it needs to be denounced, and they need to come into the society. Stop talking that old slavery talk. Confess that they sold each other in Africa. Confess that Alex Haley in that book Roots is the biggest lie, and run out of town on a rail. All these people like Van Jones, Eddie Glaude, Michael Eric Dyson, Cornel West, and Al Sharpton, and all of them, run them out of town on a rail and bring lawsuits against these institutions of higher learning and media that have allowed these, if you will, racist pension-nosed Negroes to continue to pour destruction into the families and into the homes and into the lives of our vulnerable youth. And until you do that, you're going to see these men are going to be on the street kicking up with their pants and sleeping on cardboard boxes. And it won't be long now, because God will not be denied. He will not be denied. Either you come to Jesus, come to ATLAH, or go to hell. But there is no in between. Hey, Pharaoh Eric Adams. Hey, Pharaoh Eric Adams. I'm here on 121st 3rd Street, the Outlaw World Missionary Church. When you're ready, have one of your secretaries give me a call, and we'll set up a meeting where you and I can talk about the Joseph Project, and we can bring calm and peace back to the streets of New York City. But until you do that, oh, hell is going to be an inferno all over New York City, down on Broadway, down on Wall Street, and everywhere you look on the east side and the west side. All hell is going to break loose, and ain't nothing you can do about it. There's only one answer, not more policing. There's only one answer, and that's the Joseph Project. Me. I'm James David Manning, everybody. Hey, Pharaoh Eric Adams. I'm the Lord's servant.
child of the King, is serving at all times. I am strong and I am blessed. I am special because of the Lord. Ooh, child of the King. Ooh, child of the King. Child of the King. Child of the King. I am chosen by God, a member of His royal family. I will succeed in all my studies. Because the Lord is with me. Ooh, child of the King. Ooh, child of the King. 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 Ooh, I am a child of the King. Child of the King. I am a child of the King. I am a child of the King. Child of the King. I am a child of the King. I am a child of the King. Child of the King. I am a child of the King. Child of the King. I am a child of the King. Child of the King. I am a child of the King. Child of the King. I am a child of the King. Child of the King. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Child of the King. I am a child of the King. Child of the King. Child of the King. Child of the King.
Is serving at all times. I am strong. I am blessed. I am special because of the Lord. I am chosen by God, a member of His royal